Hello, everybody, and thank you all for joining us. Uh, this this time around, Celine is unable to make it, so I will be filling in for her for today. And today we will be going over basically just like way of organizing a project since we'll be doing the game pitches next week. Should be hopefully useful for just knowing how to structure all that because there's a fair amount that goes into like generally into planning, especially when you're working in a team. Even when you're working solo, this stuff can be useful. But uh, this is especially focused towards groups and especially the group leaders, but also everyone in the group is going to need to know how to, uh, how the basic structure is going to work in terms of organizing. So this isn't, we're going to talk about Agile and then a variant of Agile called Scrum. This isn't necessarily something you have to follow, but it's the framework we encourage you to use because it will help just make sure you stay on track. Actually, someone was bringing up code. I will say this is not really specific to programmers at all. It is more for everyone in the team. This is for organizing everyone in the team. So that does include the artists and musicians as well as the programmers. But Agile, like the Agile methodology is something that has come up in like the software development space. It's essentially an approach that's focused on iterating and making version after version after version and testing those as you go. And it is very much a divide and conquer approach. You, at least when we get to Scrum specifically, just like breaking the project up into manageable chunks. And with this iteration, you get this kind of failing faster sort of approach where you try something. If it works, great, you stick with it. But also, if it doesn't work, you can then redo it. It's not as locked in as some of the older waterfall approach and stuff. So there is for this we're going to be there's a nice little video that we won't watch all of it, just the beginning. I don't think you guys can see it. You do not miss too much important. Someone just came and asked what they missed. It is that we're just going into the basics of organizing a team for game development specifically. A lot of the stuff is actually pretty general, but we will be in context of game development. So let's see. Can you guys? And I want to make sure the audio works.
Dedicated to improving the quality of games as well as your experience. Today we're going to end the series in question on what's gone wrong with games. I'm going to talk about what I see as the final piece to solving the puzzle and the question of what's gone wrong with video games. This is closely related to my last post about testing because we're going to talk about development. The development approach that a given team uses will have a huge effect on the usefulness of any testing that they do. So if they do an alpha or a beta or they test the game internally, how the game was developed is actually going to influence how useful the testing is. The reason I think a lot of game companies just choose to simply launch a broken and buggy game is because they're developing in an old traditional style of development versus developing in what's called an agile environment. What is agile development? Well, basically it's a philosophy and approach to software development that makes the software itself agile and adaptable. That's why they use the word. Older style development, or what's referred to as waterfall development, basically attempts to develop the entire product, software, or game from beginning to end and then deliver it as all one giant big piece. Typically when this happens, whoever's requesting the software is then going to turn around and say, look, there's 100 things we've got to change. The challenge here is then the developers have to pull their hair out and grind their teeth and say, yeah, sure, we can do that, but we kind of have to start over. That's going to affect everything. So this is where the term waterfall development comes from, because you literally build the entire thing and then like a waterfall, you just sort of dump all the work out at once. Now, if you're reading this and you have no knowledge of software development, you can probably see where this is going. Agile development allows for constant tweaking and fixing as the software is built. What you do is you make the MVP, the minimum viable product, and that's all you build. You do this by asking, what at its core do you need this software to do? What will be its most basic and necessary function? Now, obviously, this gets more complicated when you're building a video game, because just moving around in a 3D world requires an entire game engine to be built. However, the principle still applies. If you build in small pieces and you continue to iterate and test, you will end up with an incredibly stable and solid piece of software. Something else that happens when you do this is your developers become more adept at interacting with the systems and code inside the game. This means that unforeseen problems or bugs that emerge down the road can be more quickly and efficiently addressed, because your developers have already grown accustomed and gotten, down in the trenches of the coding more often. When waterfall development is the approach, you end up with a game that is sort of drug along, kicking and screaming, scattering bugs and glitches throughout the entire game world. Now, some of these principles with agile development may need broken down and applied differently depending on the department or the division of labor within an actual development team. But if a gaming company wants to survive the ever-changing and fast-paced technological world that they exist in, they must be able to adapt and improve their games instead of continuing to spit out games that make developers look sloppy, which they're not, and gaming companies look incompetent, which they're not. Now, if you hear me say nothing else, please hear this. Adopting agile development as your philosophy and approach is not a silver bullet. None of the things I've talked about are the golden ticket for a better developed and more polished game. Just because you beta test doesn't mean your game's going to be awesome. Just because you talk about having lots of fun and innovative ideas doesn't mean those ideas are going to get implemented. All of these things I've talked about need to coexist in the same space and feed off of one another. You need a sharp focus and a priority placed on fun instead of pitting the game against the user, and player behavior needs to be considered and properly incentivized. Games need to be built in a way that makes adding content more easy and delivered at the initial launch of the game. Creativity needs to be fostered and encouraged, with deadlines and corporate demands pushed back further and given more flexibility. More testing and transparency with gamers will help the quality of games increase. And then lastly, underneath all of this, the development needs to undergird and touch all these things. Agile development will allow for creative ideas to be tested and then implemented. It also makes space for testing and polishing prior to launch. It enables your creative teams to craft more innovative and high quality content. And it can fuel the vision and fun of the game, because you're not just repackaging old stuff. And it allows the game to be more adaptive and change. So if behavior and gamer communities are requesting different things and they don't like certain things, your game can adapt and evolve with the community. Look, I'm just a guy with ideas, and I'd love to hear your feedback and criticism.
Okay, from there, he's more just like, the whole like and subscribe thing. And the main reason for showing this is more just the part on Agile. There's the other parts where he's talking about how it is, how it's not really a silver bullet, and that's definitely a very good point. It's that, and we're going to get more into exactly like how to go about doing this stuff rather than just, oh, it's this thing you do. But those are like just mainly the points on like, you focus on just being flexible and, you're not locked into one thing as you go. So that's Agile kind of in a nutshell. So now we're going to talk about how to use Scrum to actually implement this whole Agile methodology. So what you're probably wondering is, what the heck is Scrum? It's not. If any of you are thinking of this, I mean, on one hand, cool. At the same time, this is Danganronpa. This has nothing to do with Danganronpa. Scrum is just an agile way of managing a project, and it is like a framework that focuses on, like, this is specifically breaking tasks down into, or breaking the project down into tasks. This is how you manage what you're going to do each week and that kind of stuff. It follows this cycle of you plan, you build stuff, you test it, and then you just look over what it is that you've built and then do it over. And each of these cycles is known as a sprint. And there is another video, and this is going to talk about, and again, I'm not going to show the whole thing. I'm going to be starting it kind of in the middle, where it is going to be, the focus is, like, he's going to talk a fair amount about how to use this thing called Trello, which is a great way of managing like a Scrum project. And but like the first part of the video, he's just talking about how to set up Trello, and that is not so important. That's more like if you are wanting to pitch a game, I encourage you to go back to these slides, open up this video, and watch it from the beginning, because if you're pitching the game, you'll probably need to set up the Trello board. But for everybody else, just this part about using Trello and should be enough. Let me pull this up. Let's see. Can you guys see it?
Okay, now that the board is set,
and hear it.
I'm going to show you the workflow that you'll be using with your team to update this Trello board as you go on and continue your project and activities. So this workflow borrows some elements from Agile methodology. You may have heard of it being mentioned here and there within the gaming industry, and is used across other software development teams as well. Basically allows you to deliver progress of a game in smaller chunks that is good enough to be reviewed and tested. So Agile is a huge topic on its own, and I won't be covering it in detail in this video, but do let me know in the comments section below if it's a topic that you're interested in. Now, for our workflow, first we're going to need to define what features we want to build within a certain time frame. This time frame is called a sprint. Now, it's up to you to decide on a time frame and how long is the duration, but you want to keep it below a month. If not, it's going to be against the whole strategy of building games in chunks, and you'll be caught up with building more things at a longer period of time, and then you won't be able to review and test constantly. So let's say for this time frame, for this sprint, we're going to keep it to 2 weeks, and we're going to start defining the features we're going to build or the goals that we want to achieve. Once we have a list of those features and goals, the next thing is to identify what are the tasks that are required for our team to accomplish within that time frame so that we can achieve those goals and build those features. So jumping back to my Trello board, as I mentioned earlier, it's better to have goals listed down in the form of a card so that the team can easily refer to it throughout this process. In case you don't know, cards, for example this one, they reside within lists in Trello, and they can be easily moved around. Basically, cards contain information that you can input. So when you click on a card, there's a whole bunch of stuff that you can type in as part of the description, the title, and you can even have checklists within them. You can also do other things like assign members, labels, due date, and etc. So think of cards as an advanced sticky note. With the goals listed down here, and the team has been briefed and aware of what needs to be done, you will then need to sit down with the team on the first day of the sprint and plan what tasks will everyone be working on in order to achieve the goals that have been listed. We're going to use cards to also list down the different tasks that the team needs to work on. So I'm going to jump ahead and quickly do that. In the beginning, all the cards and tasks reside within the backlog. Think of it as a long list of things that you need to do throughout the entire project, not just this sprint. And as you can see, you'll also need to categorize these cards using the labels that we set up earlier to ease your workflow. For example, this is labeled as programming. You can easily label a card by clicking on the labels here and selecting which label it will fall under. You can even mix and match them if required, and you can easily remove them. You can also quickly do that by hovering over a card and clicking on the pencil icon, and this is like a quick shortcut menu for you to easily do a few things such as edit labels. So imagine if you were to look for all the 3D tasks. Right now you can see it's nice and expanded here. You can even shrink it down. You can see that right now it's all over the place, but if you go to menu and click on filter cards, you can see the list of labels that you have, and then you can quickly find the types of tasks that you were focusing on. You can even mix and match to filter out only those labels that you have selected. So imagine, like I mentioned before, if you have hundreds or thousands of cards as your project moves on and things get more complex and you have more team members, this feature of filtering cards using labels is extremely powerful. So this is one of the most important things that you want to do as a team, and form this habit of listing down tasks in the form of cards in Trello. Even when you have a new idea, even though you're not in a meeting, make it a habit to list things down here. Do not waste your brain capacity and willpower on memorizing these tasks, and don't even write them on a piece of paper, because you're going to lose that piece of paper. And you can then reserve that extra willpower and brain capacity to focus on what's important, like actually learning a new skill, or actually solving problems, or even build features for your game. Now, back to the workflow. Once you have all the tasks listed down, you'll need to discuss with the team and assign the tasks based on what can be realistically achieved within the duration of the sprint, which is 2 weeks in our case.
I do just want to say really fast, he is kind of making it sound like, or it's sort of making it sound like you need to have like your full list of tasks down there like immediately, but this could be something that you know, like maybe initially you just list your things that you know you're going to need, and then this is just thing, like the backlog is something that you grow over time as, you know, as you find new things that you want to try adding and things like that. It's sort of like just a ever-changing list. It's not like you make a thing and then that's your list forever.
Case. Let's say you can't estimate as accurately, which is fine. Even I can't. And most teams require a few sprints before they get better and better at estimating their tasks. So during the discussion, you will then narrow down maybe these 3 are good to go and the team feels confident they can accomplish it within 2 weeks. Then you move them to do. As you can see, there's a whole bunch of other tasks that we'll need to discuss with the team, and be thorough about your discussion to ensure that they are confident enough that they can deliver and they understand what needs to be delivered within these 2 weeks to accomplish the goals set here. So go on and discuss with the team, and let's say the team has decided that based on their analysis that they can only commit to this many tasks. Everything in the to-do list is what's being committed to this one sprint. Everything else that cannot be done, or if any new problems or new tasks that come up throughout the project will always go to the backlog. Imagine it being like your inbox for your email. It will just contain everything, and it's up to you to sort out what needs to be prioritized, which is in the to-do, and what's to be done later. As the team works on their task, on a daily basis, everybody needs to check what's in progress and what's been worked on. So just simply move your task to in progress based on what you are working on. Like that. And then when the task is done, you can easily move them here to done. And then you'll then get the team member to move on and check what else needs to be done within the to-do list, and then drag that to in progress as they start working on a new task. This will then keep the team updated on what's being worked on, what's finished, and what's left to do within this sprint. So then you work on until all the things in progress is set to done, and then pick up new tasks from to do and make sure that everything is then done. So then imagine this is the last day of the sprint, and this is what it looks like. You'll need to stop everything that you're doing and then give some time to review all of the progress that has been accomplished. And during this review process, discuss with the team about the different pain points, the different challenges, and also what has been working well so far. This gives each team member an opportunity to suggest solutions and also share their problems. Now, imagine if the next sprint starts all over again. This is day one of the new sprint. We'll first have to define the goal of the new sprint. If it remains the same, so be it. If there's things that are done, check it off the list. And it's clear to our team now that we did not meet the goals to achieve whatever's been set out and listed down within this card for this sprint. That's okay. The whole process here is to make sure that the team continuously improve and maybe understand better about the different pain points, and maybe even come up with better estimates and give themselves more time to work on the different types of tasks. It's a learning process, and your team will continue to improve. So during this new sprint, on the first day where you plan your sprint, as I mentioned, review your goals and then decide what to do. You'll have to first look at what was inherited from the previous sprint that was not finished. These are the tasks that was still halfway through in progress, and the team members were not able to complete them, so they will be factored in to be done in this sprint as well. This is important because we do not want to miss out on any tasks. However, if you discuss with your team and decide that these tasks are no longer relevant, things can come out in the middle of the development and you decided, you know what, these two are no longer relevant, then feel free to get rid of them. If not, you must factor in that you have 2 extra tasks here to be worked on top of all the new things that you'll be doing for this sprint. So you discuss with the team and decide these are the remaining things that you can work on. To make things cleaner, you can also archive everything from this list. So then from there, you can create a new done list so that you have a cleaner done list for this sprint and you won't be confused with what was done in the previous sprint. Don't worry, in Trello, you can always recover back things that you have archived. If you go to the menu and click on More, and then click on Archive Items, you can see that there are things here when you click on Switch to Lists. There's a bunch of stuff that I've archived before, and then just click Send to Board, and it'll return back to the board. So a smart thing to do would probably put in either a sprint number or a date here, so that you know that this done list is for sprint 1. So that when you archive it and when you send it back, to the board, you know that you can review this knowing that it's not this sprint, it's the previous sprint. And so the cycle continues. Your team will work on more features and more tasks if there are new goals in upcoming sprints. And by right, your team will be improving on the accuracy of getting better with the estimates and how much they can commit in a particular sprint. Okay, so that's it for this tutorial. If you want to use Trello as an individual...
So this is not a structure that we're gonna, like, as the officers, we aren't gonna hold you to, really. However, what we will be doing is, once the game projects begin, roughly every 2 weeks, we will be doing basically a review where we will, or just like a check-in more, where we, where, you know, we just go around to each of the teams and ask, hey, what's up? What are you guys working on? You know, what are you planning to work on? That kind of stuff. So it's not, so that 2 weeks, so it does sort of coincide with this whole idea of having sprints where you have, you know, chunks where, you know, try to get some stuff done within this 2 week period, and then next 2 weeks you do something else. So if you are following Scrum, then that should, you know, it should line up pretty nicely. And 2 weeks is a pretty good, especially given the amount of time we have in the semester, that's a pretty good, like, size for each sprint. It gives you time to actually get stuff done in each sprint, but it's not too long. But the whole idea of doing this, having this approach, is that if you know, normally, like, and I'm sure you've probably experienced this with a lot of, like, group projects for your classes, where, you know, early on you're basically doing nothing, and then as it gets a little closer, maybe 1 or 2 people are like, wait, we should probably be doing something, and then right at the end, like in my case, once, like a couple days before the project, like this was like a 2-month project for a class, our team didn't really start until 3 days before it was due. That was a mess. And so that's usually what you see. So our hope is, especially because this is not a class, it's not meant to be that stressful. This is more, you know, just to make things that's what our hope is with using the using Scrum and Agile and all that, is to try to spread it out. So you just have, like, these smaller points of, you know, it's the start of the week, you know, we're not too stressed. And then as things go on, it's like, oh, well, we need to make sure to get stuff done for this week. But if we don't get it done, whatever, we'll just get it done next sprint. So hopefully it's definitely not that easy of a thing to follow. It's taken me a few tries before I started to get good at it, but it's definitely worthwhile to pick up, especially if you want to get into software development or specifically game development, because it's just what you see fairly often used in the industry itself. Right. One thing I do want to do, I did not mean to actually open that. So going back to the game pitches and all that, I'm going to go ahead and put in the link again for the, where's the chat? Where's the chat go? There we go. For anyone who is interested in pitching a game and hasn't yet, you can, the form for that, I've dropped it in the chat. Also, if you're looking at this after the fact, we'll put the link in the slides and probably also in the description of the video. And this was the point originally where I was going to ask Mandan to, you know, to talk about the pixel art workshop, but whatever, we've done that already. Ahead of schedule, I suppose, or something. Next week, so next Tuesday, this is when the game pitches will be, or when the group leaders will be pitching their games. So hopefully everyone will have all their game pitches submitted at least the day before, just so that we can get an idea of how many people will be pitching and how much time to give these people. Because in addition to just making sure everyone has time to talk, we also want to have, dedicate the rest of the meeting just so that teams can meet up and get organized and stuff. Because even though, we're all online now, we still, some people might have classes after the club. We don't want to, have people stay afterward. So
honestly, couldn't we kind of extend this to like Friday, 18th?
What do you mean?
Because today's the 15th. It says signups close on the 17th.
Signups close on oh, this is for mentorships.
Oh, mentorships. Oh, okay.
Yeah, which I know that, so I'll go ahead and put this in the chat too.
Oops.
I know that Celine was pushing for this before, so I'm going to do the same. If you're interested in mentorships, now they're just 2 links in the chat, whatever. If you're interested in mentorships, those are still, we're still looking for signups for that. If you are interested in getting mentored by some very, very experienced and very smart people, and also some very rad people too, I encourage you to, go sign up for that. Okay, I think that is pretty much everything. Yes, we have. We'll just leave this here for the moment. I mean, yeah. At this point, we've gone through everything. So if you need to leave, feel free to. We're actually gonna close it in very soon because unless anyone else wants to squeak in any last questions, I think at this point we can safely end the.
Thank you.
End the meeting. So, I just want to thank everyone for coming. And hopefully we'll see our lovely president back here again next week. And also I'm really looking forward to see what everyone has to pitch. These are always just fun to see, everything that everyone has to come up with. And sometimes we get people who've definitely done stuff like this before, and sometimes they're new. So wherever you fall, hope to see you there.